Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you guys about pain. Yes, the excruciating pain of loss, the pain of devastation, the pain of disappointment, the pain of just, everyday life. You know what I mean? So first things first, I think that when it comes to life, we have to understand that there is no life without pain. Like it's just one of those things. It is what it is, and I think in order to have joy, you have to have pain. And I don't think that you know what joy is until you've experienced pain. And I don't think that you know what light is until you've experienced darkness, right? Because how can you identify something as light and you've never experienced darkness? You know what I mean? I think the problem with a lot of people is that when it comes to pain, we don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to process it. And this is why you have a lot of people who become bitter, angry, like enraged. They're very revengeful, you know what I mean? And it just kind of turns into something that's super negative. I understand from a biblical standpoint in regards to like demonic energy and forces and, you know what I mean, people and things like that. And I do think that sometimes you have people who, you're like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, and everybody doesn't necessarily always have pure intent, but from my personal experience, I tell you guys this all the time, like how I first started my walk with God. And, I started with spiritual books. I started with the spiritual perspective, getting an understanding of like energy, my spirit, myself, my identity. I started with meditation. And so then I started to read the Bible from that. And I started to, really get an understanding of Jesus Christ and his principles. And so, my journey was a little bit different. And so one of the things that I can definitely say is when it comes to the whole demonic thing, I do think that there are some people who don't necessarily always have the best intentions. But one of the things about me, and this is something that God teaches as well, is to get understanding. And I understand why certain people do what they do. Doesn't mean that I tolerate it, and it doesn't mean that I allow it in my life. But I really feel like in order to have a light heart, in order to have a joyous heart, you got to have forgiveness. I knew for myself, I didn't want to be like bitter, and I know what it's like to actually be bitter, and I know what it's like to be in a space of unwillingness to forgive, and I know what it's like to be in a space where you don't understand something, and so you have regret, and you're filled with just so much sorrow about a person's decisions. And, to me, that makes me feel so powerless, and you should too, because at the end of the day, you can't control that. You can't control when somebody decides to walk out of your life. You can't control when somebody decides, hey, this isn't good for me anymore. You can't control what another person does. You will never be able to control another human being. And so with that being said, I've learned to really live in the present moment with people, as long as, we were on the same, vibrational plane, right? As long as we were equally yoked. I've learned to appreciate people when they come into my life, right? And I've learned to embrace the lessons. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm like burping and bloating. I had a cookie. Oh, I have such a bad idea. Mouth watering. I'm just, bear with me. But yeah, I've really learned to embrace people as they come in my life. You know what I mean? I've learned to be in those moments. But I just wanted to let people know, like when it comes to your pain, you got to use it to advance you. You got to let it teach you. You know what I mean? You got to learn through the pain. You got to let the pain transform you in your life. You got to let the pain uproot everything that you're holding on to, and so that you can be advanced. But, I think a lot of times people don't understand, like in life, there's just going to be pain. When you grow, it's painful. When you have a baby, it's painful. When you're, you know what I mean? It's painful. Cramps are painful. Right? When you working out, it's painful. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like, yes, working out feels good or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of pain. It's just, right? You hurt a little bit, And so I think that sometimes we go through things in life and we think, what, I'm never doing this again. I'll never, you know what I mean? And I think that mentality is just setting you up because, you know what I mean? Like, and I think even the people with the best intentions sometimes hurt you. Sometimes even the people that you really love and the people you really care about inflict some sense of pain on you. You know what I mean? Right? This is why God talks about forgiveness and, forgiving people because they don't know what they do. I've learned that, I know right now we're on this whole movement of like self-evolution and things like that. And people are like growing. And I say movement because, I don't like when we make things a trend, and because the reason being is because it's more so like people are just on a bandwagon because it sounds good, but they're not really putting in the work on the outside. And so I feel like you have a lot of like I don't want to say false prophecy in regards to that, but at the same time, it kind of just seems like, you know what I mean? Because it sounds good, but it's like, who's really putting on the work on themselves? I think a lot of times we think that working on ourselves is working on our physicality, right? How can we dress better? How can we get the best body? How can we get in a better financial position? No. Like, working on yourself is working on yourself internally, because that's the one thing that'll never change. And that's the only thing you can ever take credit for. I said it all the time, like, you know, when I was going through my I'm not going to say spiritual journey, but it kind of was like a spiritual journey, because I had like a ego death, right? Black night of the soul, all of those things. Like, God totally had took away my pride, my ego. All of that was crushed. I had no sense of self. You know what I mean? And I had to identify with something greater than myself. And if you've walked that walk, then you understand what it is I'm saying. But anyways, you know, when I had went through that, I realized that the only thing that I ever could take credit for was me, my spirit, my energy, and how I was showing up. I didn't choose this face. I didn't choose this body. I know a lot of like spiritual teachers will say, yes, you did choose your parents. And yes, you did. And, you know, I get it from that standpoint, but I ain't talking about that, right? Like, maybe we're going to descend a level, right? And meet me here, right? I didn't choose that. And so for me, I never really was so focused on that. And I think it was like, it was beautiful. And I'm thankful for beauty and for youth and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, I really feel a sense of confidence, you know what I mean, in regards to when I get compliments, mostly just because I know within myself, like, I have such a good spirit, you know? But anyways, I'm not perfect. And the point that I, you know, was referencing in regards to the people that you love hurting you is that we're all just out here doing the best that we can with the information that we have right now. You know what I mean? And I think it's so much easier to look at pain and the people who hurt you from that perspective versus you walking around being angry, being resentful, being unforgiving because somebody did something to you. You know what I mean? I don't think I ever wanted, I knew for myself, I never wanted to live a life and I was like so cold hearted, you know, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I ain't trying to go out bitter. I ain't trying to go out holding on to the past. I ain't trying to, you know what I mean? Like, for me, that was just a decision that I just made. I think I made that decision when I like started to look into the reasons for like sicknesses, you know what I mean? Illnesses. I started to really tap in and people were, you know, the common things were like, resentment, you know, just unforgiving, you know, it was like rooted in that. And I was like, okay, hold up. I'm really trying to do that. And so for me, I really like shifted my perspective in regards to everything that I was doing. Like, you know, when it comes to my parents, when it comes to the people I love, like, I've learned to set boundaries. You know, I didn't always have that. And that's another thing too. Like, if you are somebody and you're dealing with somebody who is hurting you and, you know, you feel like this person may have good intentions or maybe you don't, I don't know. But at the end of the day, you do have to have boundaries when you're dealing with people because they may be operating in a space where they're not aware of what they're doing and you can't have that conversation. Like, they're not mature enough to have that conversation. So you need to set boundaries. You need to say, you know what? This, like, look, you know, I can only talk to this person about this. We only going to kick it on these days at these times. This is all I got for this person, you know? And I have people like that in my life too. And it's really just because, you know, they don't know what they do. Like, they don't know why they are, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people are not taking that deep dive. Like, that's not a thing, you know? And I know we're making it a thing, but it's really not a thing. So anyway, pain. It's inevitable. It's life. And I don't think that you can have life without pain. I do think that, you know, God does talk about like everlasting joy. You know, joy is definitely something that's inside of you. I think that I could choose to sit in pain today. I can choose to feel, you know what I mean? Those things today. But with God's grace and just God's mercy overall, just reigning in the lives of so many of us who are listening, who have our senses, who have our health, who have, you know what I mean? Like, you just got to understand, like, at the end of the day, you can be rooted in who you are and you can be still and faithful and be calm and at peace in the midst of a storm because you have God. But you just have to understand that pain is inevitable. And, you know, there's nothing that you can really go through in life to like avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. And so don't let it make you bitter. You know, you really need to seek understanding in regards to your pain. Like, if you keep inflicting pain on yourself, you got to ask yourself, why do I think this about myself? You know, I think a lot of times our pain, especially when it comes to our own personal suffering, is because we've attached our identity to something outside of God, something outside of our spirits. I mean, we're so out of tune with ourselves. You know what I mean? We've attached our identity to a illness or a relationship or a certain weight, like, you know what I mean? And it's not serving us. And I think that that's so important. Like, I know for me, you know, when I was going through, I really attached a lot of my identity to my accomplishments. You know, if I was like the best at something, then I was like, all right, cool. You know, that's who I am. And even though I do, I'm always letting people know, like, you know, represent excellence. That's completely different. But yeah, like I really used to attach my identity to what it was that I do, you know, and when I got to a point where I wasn't doing so well in certain areas, I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, so it's continuous, right? Like it's growth, but at the same time, it's painful and it's life. So you have to mature enough, pray for understanding, and just understand, like, straight up. You're never going to have a life without pain. Like, it is what it is, you know, but you can learn how to navigate it. And you can learn, here's the thing too about pain. Like when you have seasons of pain, them seasons really will teach you to enjoy those seasons of joy and just like peace and calmness. You know what I mean? Because that's a blessing. You know, like you can actually start to appreciate peace, and you can start to appreciate people who come into your life who are radiating light and who are radiating positive energy, right? You can appreciate that. You won't take that for granted. So let your pain be a teaching like opportunity every time. You know what I mean? There's no life without it. And I think at the end of the day, if you could just sit and reflect on the pain, whether you've caused it to others or, you know, vice versa, you'll be fine. You know, and understand that you're not a bad person because you've gone through things or you're experiencing things. Like that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. God chastises those who he loves, right? And like I said, at the end of the day, it's just growth, right? You have to grow up. You have to grow. Like if it literally in life, that's just not like, just think if the trees never grew, if the trees never, you know, followed God's law and nature's law of just like seasons. Hello. Make sure you guys check out my book Seasons, available at JennaLeslie.com. If like the birds, if they never migrated, guess what? They would die. Okay. If the leaves were still out here trying to be green and pretty, and the flowers was trying to bloom in winter, they would die. Okay, so that's life, honey. It's life. Like you either grow or you die. That is literally what. And I'm not saying you're gonna drop dead. You know, God, like I'm not saying you're gonna drop dead. That's not even the message that I'm spewing, right? But what I am saying is that when you like something inside of you dies, your spirit, your soul, like you're losing parts of yourself because you're not growing. So let that pain make you stronger and turn your pain into purpose. I don't know why people think like that's the problem. That's what I talk about identity. We are so consumed with ourselves. We see ourselves in a certain light. We want to stay there. We don't want to talk about the things we've been through. You do realize that you're going to die and nobody's really going to care about what it is that you've done in your life, what you've kept secret, what you've concealed, how you presented yourself. But what we are going to care about is how you made us feel, you know? And I knew for myself, I'm like, man, if I could just touch one little girl somewhere and she's like, you know what, I want to grow up to be better than this environment, better than these social influences that are pushed upon me. You know what I mean? Like if I could do that, then hey, I've done what I needed to do. You know, if you can touch one, you can touch many. And I think that that's just where so many people go wrong. Like that pain, your story is not for you. It's not for you. Nobody cares. You don't even care. Listen, I've read my book Seasons and it's fabulous. It's a great read. I love it. It's very inspirational. It's very informational. But at the same time, I didn't write it just for like me. That wasn't for just like my book. Like, okay, cool. I wrote a book. I'm going to just like, no. You know what I mean? I wrote it to help people. And I think that if you could turn your pain into purpose, you can heal through your pain, you know, and it can transform it into something beautiful. But if you're just sitting here holding on to it, walking around mad at the world, then yeah, you're going to be upset because guess what? Next season comes around, you're going to get some more pain. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to, you know what I mean? And I don't like to talk about death in a way that's just like so casual because I really do feel like it's a very excruciating pain and it's like a devastation. Like having that routine with somebody or seeing somebody one day and them being gone tomorrow is like probably one of the most traumatic experiences. I don't even think that traumatic could, I can't even say if is it a trauma or just like a flat out devastation. You know what I mean? That's so disheartening. And you have to find a whole new normal. Like that is painful. And that takes a lot of time. So I'm never just like talking about it like, oh, it's a casualty. You know what I mean? And I'm very thankful for the people I have in my life. But when I was younger, for as long as I remember, I went to a funeral like every year. And so I think being like walking like that with death, and death just like at the time, it seemed like it was just so prevalent in my family. You know, I had a different understanding, you know, and I had a different experience with it. And so, you know, that's why you guys may hear me talk about it that way. I guess maybe I came to terms, not really, but like, you know, like I get it. And I guess that's just like pretty much what I wanted to share. But like I said, I don't mean to be insensitive, so I'll leave that there. But yes, you guys, it's life, and it's painful. But the beautiful thing about life is like, with pain comes joy, you know, and if you can just push through that and allow it to transform you and give your burdens on God, right? Cast your burdens on the Lord. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, you're literally going to be fine, and you're going to come out 10 times stronger. You know what I mean? You're going to come out 10 times better, but you can't fold in that season of pain, because if you fold, then you'll be weak, right? And God wants you to lean on him for strength and things like that, and seek understanding. I'm telling you right now, like, holding on to people who don't want to stay, holding on to people who chose to leave your life, holding on to people who have hurt you is just doing you the greatest disservice. I'm telling you right now, like it will literally change you. It'll change you fundamentally. Holding on to unforgiveness, it literally will change you fundamentally. It'll change you genetically. Because, you know, all of that is just, it's such negative, heavy, burdensome energy. You know, you just can't, you know, so I'm going to leave everybody with their thoughts. I know this podcast was a little sullen, and I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to be like super sad, but I just kind of wanted to sit in this space with you guys, because this is something that we've all experienced. We all will experience, right? And I know sometimes we're on the go, so we don't always necessarily take the time to appreciate the little things, but I totally recommend everybody gratitude journals. Like, get it, write it down. It's so major leisure. It's so important. So yeah. I'm going to leave everybody with their thoughts, and I hope everybody had a great day.